Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. We hear a lot as comic book fans about Batman, and specifically about his universe, right? Because there's a big ensemble cast of characters. Okay, you've got, of course, Batman and Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, Batwoman. You've got Red Hood. You've got another Robin. You got like basically two Robins. Depends on what day of the week it is, how many Robins they have over there. And of course, you've got Alfred. You've got villains. You've got his rogues gallery, of course. You've got Jim Gordon. You've got other characters. But a universe, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. Yes, it's DC Comics, of course. Superman, yes. When I think of Superman, do I think a universe of characters? I don't know. I guess if I sit here long enough, I could probably come up with some. Superman, Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, X, Y, and Z. Boy, that was simple, right? I mean, I didn't do a lot of homework on that one, did I? I'm not a big Superman guy, can you tell? And then, of course, you cross from to the other publisher, the X-Men universe. You know how many characters there are in the X-Men universe? If you never introduce like other Marvel heroes, you still have enough universe there for a litany of books, and they've done it a lot over the years, right? And yes, that leads us into the Spider-Verse. It's our topic for today, kids. The idea of a Spider-Verse, of a universe full of spider-related characters, heroes and villains, but they all inhabit this one universe. And there's enough there that you don't need to involve any other Marvel characters unless you just want to or need to, whatever that looks like. That's a pretty big deal for this character, and for a character as important as Spider-Man. Yeah, it something like this should be going on. Okay, let's get into it. The Spider-Verse is an animated universe featuring the Miles Morales Spider-Man and is based on stories and characters appearing in Marvel Comics. The first film, Into the Spider-Verse, was directed by Phil Perschetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman, and produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and was distributed by Sony Pictures. It was released in the United States on December 14, 2018 on a budget of $90 million and achieved a box office of over $384 million. The sequel, Across the Spider-Verse, was directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kit Powers, and Justin Thompson, and produced by Lord and Miller yet again. It was released on June 2nd, 2023 on a budget of $100 million, with the current box office, as of this recording, of $405 million. And that's your lowdown for the Spider-Verse. So, Phil, a funny thing happened on the way to recording Into the Spider-Verse for the 6M. It went well. I remembered us having fun doing it, down to the bagel reference with the sound effect. We had everything. It was a fun episode. And then the guy what runs the show goes and loses the audio. That would be me. So here we are, back in the saddle again for the Spider-Verse, and we're going to talk about both movies here. You've just seen, as have I, the sequel. What did you think right out the gate about this sequel, man?
Yeah, let's try this one more time.
Well done.
Yeah, I think when you go back and look at the first movie, I think the first movie is just so good. It's such a great way to introduce pop culture to Miles and take things that are familiar to Peter Parker fans, so it doesn't feel like a betrayal or like a step away from Spider-Man mythos. And as somebody that read the Spider-Verse crossover, I believe that was 2014 that came out.
I think so.
And was a big fan of the Dan Slott stuff. And Dan is like this like mad scientist when it comes to Spider-Man stuff. I don't know many people out there that know more about Spider-Verse that will find more obscure references. And to get a movie that kind of celebrates all of this kookiness and all of the great things about Spider-Man, I said seeing the first movie, it's a love letter to Spider-Man, not just the movies, but just who the character is, just everything about him.
Yeah. Kid Arachnid, that's going back. Spider Man Miles Morales. Um, cool costume. And let's see, been created in 2011 by Brian Michael Bendis, of course, and Sarah Pichelli with input by Marvel's then editor in chief, Axel Alonso. The character possesses powers similar to those of the original Spider Man, which are derived from the bite of a spider, of course, genetically engineered by Spider Man's nemesis, Norman Osborn, in an attempt to duplicate those abilities. Dude, let's give the costume a shout out, man. Is this the coolest? And look, the red and blue is iconic. There's probably kids in third world countries that live in houses with dirt floors that know the Spider-Man costume and that face. It's iconic. How do you think the black and red measures up to the iconic costume, though?
Yeah, I think the original Pacelli design is really dope. I think they did a cool riff on it for Into the Spider Verse. Yeah, I'm
Mm,
a big fan of the Pacelli costume.
mm, yeah. Um, I love it. I think it looks very cool, updated, and I like the way you said that. Uh, more or less, it doesn't really step on Peter. This story, it doesn't really. These characters don't really subtract anything else. You and I have talked a lot on this show about franchises getting rebooted. The one that immediately jumps to mind was the ill-fated Ghostbusters with the all-female cast, which I think not all of us kids, because a lot of dudes are like threatened by women and minorities, which is weird. I don't get it, but whatever. But I think Phil, I won't speak for you here, but I think for a lot of us, the problem with that movie is they acted like the original franchise never happened, which is really odd. Like, why couldn't this have just been a sequel in an extended universe? I mean, for me personally, I would have been there to watch it on opening night. But when I found out, yeah, this is a complete reboot, the other movies didn't happen, I'm like, what? I mean, I don't know. To me, that ruins it. But to your point, that never really happened here with the books or with the movies. Like, in fact, Peter Parker is an important character. How big of a deal is it that Marvel didn't go that route here? I mean, they really couldn't. Like, really couldn't, right? And without upsetting a lot of people. How important is it that you maintain those other characters?
I mean, I think it's really important. As somebody that read the Miles book from day one, um, Peter is Miles has been. When Peter dies, it's the thing that makes Miles decide like I have to do something.
Mm,
And it's the same thing in this movie. I think when we meet the first Peter Parker, and he's a Peter Parker that has it all together, which is rare, um,
mm,
and he dies. And I mean, from the second he meets Miles, he offers to mentor him. He doesn't shun him away. He's like, "No, you got this." And he was like, "We get through this. I'm going to show you the way." And it doesn't happen, of course, because he dies in very violent fashion.
mm. It's been a long time, and I'll be honest with you, I can't say that I've read that entire launch of Miles Morales. How close were the movies here to the original series?
I mean, I think there are a lot of creative differences from the Bendis book. And I think a lot of the differences are they add to his character. Because, I mean, we get
Mhm,
an idea that he comes from a mixed race family,
mhm,
but they add more of that influence into the movies, especially in the second movie. We get to know his mother a lot more. Um, I just had little bits like him speaking Spanish every now and then, and just seeing like the influence on from his dad's side of the family and his dad is. His dad's not a cop in the comics as well. Uh
mm,
that's a movie thing. But I feel like that's done intentionally to put him on the direct opposite of his Uncle Aaron. His Uncle Aaron is still Prowler in the comics as well. It's a little bit different. But yeah, most of the origin stuff is the same. Most of the way, like the origin with hanging out with his uncle and getting bit while hanging out with his uncle is all the same. Um,
mm.
the spider has the 42 on it, which was great. Which
Mhm.
now seeing the second movie and going back and seeing the first movie and realizing that the spider glitches, it's like they had this all the time. They had that story beat in there from the very beginning.
Mhm. Yeah, the significance of the 42, that's a big deal for this story. I know a little bit about that, but like tell me a little bit more about what the significance of 42 is here.
I think in story, it's that spider is trial number 42. He's
Mhm.
the he's the he's the spider number 42 that existed, but the 42 is in reference to Jackie Robinson in real life. I
Right.
think from Bendis's creative mind. But I think there's so many other cool things like the fact that the inspiration for Miles Morales was Donald Glover. Seeing Donald Glover wear the Spider-Man shirt on Community, and there was that campaign for Donald for Spider-Man, and it was kind of like, well, why can't a black man be Spider-Man? And that was what inspired Miles Morales. And so seeing Donald close to his movies, like getting a cameo in Homecoming, and then getting other things to do with his franchise. I know he did the voice for Miles for the Ultimate cartoon. He's done a bunch of other things around the universe. That's also cool.
I really love that. And I was fortunate enough to be in a theater of people who knew him and recognized him and popped off that. So that was cool, actually.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we get a very
I enjoyed
cool
seeing him there.
Donald cameo in a second movie that I wasn't expecting. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's why I just don't personally care for spoilers. I like to be surprised, man. I don't know. That's just me. I can't. Oh, well, here's spoiler. I'm like, I'm not reading it. I'm not reading that. Like, I don't want to know. I just want to go watch and enjoy the movie.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I don't want to get into any of the spoilers for the second movie. I saw it um that Tuesday before it released,
Mhm.
and man, some of the pops in that theater were massive. Just like some of the surprises, just being in a crowd that was full of Spider-Man fans and seeing them so excited for like some of these cameos we saw and like some of the references and callbacks. It's really cool.
Right. Yeah, I love when the producers go the extra mile for things like that. Man, I really enjoy that. Of course, this is an animated universe, and we've got some stuff to talk about here today with this show, but or this movie, I should say, these movies. Um, how close are we to getting live action? I was going to save that to the end of this, but I mean, as these two movies have become wildly successful, at what point do we not say, let's just go, let's just do it? Like, what are we waiting on for live action here, Phil?
Yeah, I think live action is definitely coming. I mean, gotten we've gotten two references to Miles in the MCU Spider-Man movies now. Um, So I think it's definitely happening. It's just a matter of when at this point. And now Miles is so popular with pop culture crowds. Like it's not just that he's known among uh, just like the just the comic guys or like the nerds because of the Spider-Man video game and because of this show. I'm saying show now. This movie, um, more people know who he is. So there's definitely going to be a live action Miles.
It's so exciting, dude. Dude, you know how exciting this is because with the advent of the multiverse in the MCU, or at least MCU adjacent, right? I mean, dude, we've got, oh my God, Phil, you could potentially bring the end to one of the other Peter Parker stories with a Miles Morales movie, whether it's Garfield or Tobey Maguire, either one. I mean, that could be, oh, in my head, this is starting to look like a really cool flick, man.
Yeah. Of course, I don't want to see Tom Holland die on screen. We've already seen him die. I don't want to see him die again.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
but yeah, I do think that the idea of Tom's Peter getting to mentor Miles at some point does sound really cool, and kind of giving him like a pass the torch moment. which has kind of become an MCU thing because now we're in this era where a lot of the actors are moving on and they're doing a lot of legacy characters now. So we've now gotten to see um, a good amount of the main cast mentor somebody. We got to see Hawkeye do it in his show. We got to see Hulk do
Mm.
it in She-Hulk. Um, we got to see Tony do it with Peter a little bit before the snap. Um, so yeah, I think it's definitely going to be cool to see Tom take on that kind of role as well.
Yeah. Oh man, for sure. I'd be really. I'm really like, and you know what? Honestly, Phil, if you wanted to, you could just cast another Peter and just kill him off. But it kind of feels like that wouldn't make a lot of sense when we already have 3 Peter Parkers running around right now. I mean, technically, I don't know. It just seems like the thing to do to bring. And let's be honest, it'd probably be Toby because I don't know. It feels like there's another. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking out loud, but like, kind of feels like we should revisit Andrew's universe. But if you're going to bring someone's story to an end, it could be Toby because he was the one that if not for Tobey Maguire, we don't get a Spider-Man on the big screen to begin with, and get those classic movies that we all. I mean, you and I have done 2 different 6Ms on those films, so yeah, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with it. The animation for the Spider Verse. I'll be honest with you, and this is going to sound negative. There was so much going on in part 2, and it seemed like not seemed like, but like different Spider-Man. God, there were so many Spider-Man on screen at one time in part 2, right? But like so many of them had different art styles. And like one looks hand drawn, one looks completely computer generated, one looks like it was done with crayon. I mean, and they're all interacting with each other at the exact same time. There was so much going on in part 2 that and I'm not saying that there are because I haven't read really any kind of negative reviews at all here none that I've set out to find. But if anyone had a problem with that, I could see people nitpicking like, oh my God, there's so much going on. Like the screen is just packed full. For me, I dig that, honestly. Was there too much chaos for you in the second movie at all? Like it felt like part 1 didn't, for me, part 1 didn't get that way. Was part 2 more chaotic, maybe too much?
Yeah, I think part 1 was intentionally chaotic. I think it worked in a good way. I think just all of the clash of all of those different art styles, the clash of all of those different voices in the room. Um, Miguel getting annoyed that you. I saw somebody make a joke on Twitter that people tried to make Miguel out to be the bad guy, but yeah, if I was the only guy in my office trying to be serious and all of my coworkers thought they were so funny, I'd be mad all the time too. um, but yeah, no, just like all of these guys all trying to make jokes, like the massive pointing reference that we got. Yeah, I think it worked because it's just so all over the place. I think they managed to blend a lot of art styles really well. Um, all of the Gwen scenes in her universe look exactly like that book. Like it looks exactly like the Robbie Rodriguez book. Really cool. If you followed the Spider Gwen stuff from day one, coming out of Spider Verse, I think you're gonna really like the Gwen stuff in this movie. Um, but yeah, even like the Miles stuff and how his stuff is like its own art style, and then you drop somebody like Hobie Brown in, and Hobie's got like his own like very chaotic and in your face art style. Hobie is one of the breakout stars of this movie, by the way. I've seen so many
Hmm.
people now that are Spider Punk fans, and I was a Spider Punk fan before the movie, and so it's just cool watching him take off and seeing people be so excited about him.
Yeah. Oh, we did the Living Color Vivid episode. You had mentioned him, and I had yet to see the film. But yeah, dude, I completely agree with you. He was that character is really really cool actually, and getting the chance to interact with some great guys in England as you and I have on different podcasts. Shout out to the Untitled Wrestling Podcast, by the way, kids. And also in my line of work, talking to folks all day of different backgrounds and different dialects and whatnot. Like I appreciated how authentic everything about that character was. Very, very cool. Anarchy, right? It's very cool stuff.
Yeah, I thought the Spider-Man from India as well was really cool. I thought all of the
Oh
scenes in
yeah,
his
yeah.
universe were really cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. I really like that. And again, dude, this idea of a universe, they fully establish it now for sure. Um, in terms of which film, do you have a preference of like which one for you was your favorite? Do you think two outperformed number one?
I think the second movie is the better movie, but there are so many things in the first movie that I don't know, that just still hit me every time I watch it. The soundtrack for the first movie is still great. I mean,
Mm,
uh, you could not go anywhere that summer without hearing Sunflower. Um, and
true.
so it's cool that was in that movie. Just seeing him get. I think the important thing about what they've done with Miles in both movies is they've done enough to tie him to Peter, but they've also done a great job of making him his own character. You're not going to go into a Peter Parker Spider-Man movie and get like all this rap music and all of this relevant stuff, but you are going to get it with Miles because he's a more contemporary character, and I think that's cool. Um, but yeah, no, it's hard to say that they topped the first movie because I'm telling you the amount of times I've like seen the scene when he first like finally gets it and he starts swinging on his own and we get the what's up danger scene and it is just so emotional because we're on this journey with Miles. We see him finally figure it out on his own. It's really really cool and you think like, they can't top that. They can't possibly top like the fight with Kingpin at the end. And man,
Right.
just how perfect the line was when he's like, "Man, you got to go home, man." He's
That
like,
was
"Yeah, you're
great.
right. It's a leap of faith." But they somehow managed to top all of that in the second movie.
Yeah, I honestly I checked out the soundtrack to part two because I was curious because I don't it definitely has a presence here. Okay, for sure. But I still am partial to the first soundtrack. I'm not necessarily partial to the first movie, but I'm definitely partial to the first soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean,
So
nothing on that soundtrack hits as hard as Sunflower. Sunflower, like I said, it was one of the hottest songs of that year.
I think What's Up Danger is my favorite. I freaking love
Yeah.
that tune. So good.
Yeah, I mean, you
Um,
can't. I don't think you could have created a more perfect scene with Miles than that scene of him, like going like so determined to figure out how to web swing on his own, and so determined to not be left behind, and just picking just such a perfect song to be the backdrop of it. Really incredible.
oh, dude, you're 100% right. Yeah, it fits. It just absolutely fits for sure. So there's a again, man, there's a lot to talk about here. Let's talk about the cast because a lot of the cast returns for the sequel. A lot of stuff to get into here. Shamik Moore as Miles. But by the way, did you know that he's supposedly campaigning to play Miles on the big screen?
Yes, I've seen that he's saying he wants to slim down so he can play the character in live action. I think she Meek Moore is great. If you haven't seen the movie Dope, Dope is a fantastic movie, and that's where I first came across him,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's great as Miles in this movie. I don't. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause with him trying to do it in live action is if they're gonna start with Miles' origin. Miles is 11 when he gets bitten by a spider, if I remember
Mm.
correctly. And so it might be a bit old for it, but I don't know. It depends on where they first introduce us to Miles. So
You know, if nothing else, Phil, we do have a gigantic multiverse here. He could always show up as a Miles from another universe who's older.
yeah, that'd be cool.
I mean, I don't know, it'd be something. Maybe from the future, that'd be even better. Yeah, as of this recording, he's 28. So I mean, assuming this film doesn't, you know, get the green light for another 2 years or a year, whatever that number is, and I'm just throwing a number out there, he's over 30 by the time this thing hits production. So, I mean, they
Yeah.
could young him up, obviously, but do they young him up to the point where he's younged up for the entire film? I mean, the
Yeah.
cost of that tech alone, it's one thing to do, Downey and flashbacks or whatnot, or whoever we're talking about, but for an entire film with no mask on and a lot of scenes, that might be a little bit tougher. He's great. Um, and he sounds Miles' age. He does really well here. I mean, it feels like he is when you hear him talk, like in his speaking voice. You close your eyes and you feel like it's Miles Morales all over again. Man, what a great job by this guy! And he really comes in his own with the second film. I mean, he does great in the first film, of course, but he's very comfortable in his own skin. It's a second spin as Miles. Nobody else I could imagine being in this.
Yeah.
In this, to be honest, he's great.
Yeah, and I think not just that he adds such uh, a great voice to this movie, but he's a good actor. And so all of the scenes where he's allowed to do like some real acting, he kills it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. He is joined in this cast once again back Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker. He's the out of shape 38-year-old from another dimension, and he's the Spider-Man. They don't say Earth 616, but we just assume that he is our Spider-Man. Yes, isn't that what we assumed from the first movie as well?
Yeah, I think we kind of assume he is because our Spider-Man is not nearly as perfect as the Spider-Man from Miles' universe,
Yeah.
who is voiced by Chris Pine, if I remember correctly.
What a great turn. What a great turn. What a great character. And I didn't get to see him that much, but yeah.
Yeah, I love
Um,
Chris Pine. Basically doing the opposite of what he does in the JJ Star Trek franchise, where we meet his dad, who is Chris Hemsworth, at the beginning of the movie, and he has like this triumphant death that then leads us to follow Chris Pine later in the movie. And Chris Pine does that for Miles here.
yeah, well done for sure. Yeah. Jake Johnson, as we said, Peter B. Parker, apparently is an amalgamation of all Spider-Man adaptations in pop culture and interpretations. So Lord and Miller, by the way, huge creative team here, Phil. These guys are responsible for a lot of cool stuff that we've all enjoyed for the past several years. These guys are killing it. Lord Miller envisioned him to be like the Karate Kid's Mr. Miyagi if Mr. Miyagi doesn't know anything, which they thought was a really neat concept. So I just remember him sitting in that burger joint, scarfing down those cheeseburger and then eating Miles's cheeseburger because that diner had closed in his universe. So that's a very cool thing to see.
Yeah, flick
Jake
and
Johnson's
pull,
great here, man.
flick and pull, flick
Yeah.
and pull.
And when Miles finally gets it together and he goes, "Oh my God, I love you." He said, "Wait, do I want kids?" That's so good. That's so good, man. Because of course the story in the first film is that him and MJ split up because she wanted kids and he couldn't imagine bringing kids into everything, and it's what ended up splitting them up. So that was a nice callback. And then in part two, he's got a kid, Phil.
Yeah,
So it all came full circle.
they go full on uh into the Mayday and Peter stuff, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Marvel fans that have read that like short-lived book will enjoy that. Um, yeah, crazy. It's just crazy thinking about just how long Spider-Man has been around. It's just like the amount of references you could throw at not just comic fans, but just movie going fans, and I understand it because I'm just thinking about the first Into the Spider Verse and how uh, the Peter Parker from Miles' universe has that montage, and part of the montage is like him doing the train scene for Spider-Man 2. So
Mm-hmm.
many cool stuff in there. But yeah, Peter B is great. I think they chose a perfect voice actor for it because he's just kind of like, I don't know, he has this everyman voice and he also kind of has this kind of tone like, I don't know. uh, I just kind of do this. Like, watch what I do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I remember he calls the drive a goober. says there's always something. There's always a key, to reverse everything. Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, the goober. Or one of the best scenes in both movies is him getting poked and prodded by that doctor, and we find out it's Dr. Octavius from that universe.
So
And
good.
he's just like, he's just all nonchalantly like, we'll figure it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the cargo shorts on over his costume. And then in this movie he's got like the bathrobe over it.
Yeah, with slippers on the entire time, I think. Yeah, he's. I was gonna call him the most confident of all the Spider-Man, but it kind of does feel like, yeah, all these guys got here after I did. I'm the first, and I'm sure that's the intention of this character, is to make you feel like this is the Spider-Man you grew up with. Probably this is the Spider-Man that most fans know, and it's perfect, dude. It fits.
Yeah, it definitely has that vibe of like, um, I don't know, growing up. I don't know if you had the same experience. Just thinking your dad is like the coolest person in the world. Like, my dad can do all of this stuff that I can't do. He can drive a car. He can shave. He can do all this cool stuff that I don't know how to do. And then when you actually want him to teach you how to do stuff, he's just like, I don't know. It's just like, what? No,
Hmm.
show me how to do this. Like you do it all the time. And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah, because he tells him in the first movie to use baby powder because the costume will chafe. He's like, "Is that
yeah,
all?" Yeah, that's about it.
all of his advice is just kind of like, yeah, he'll figure it out.
It's all practical advice. None of it is real. It's like, here's how the costume fits. Just remember, I told you this, or whatever. It's really good stuff. Yeah, he's great, man. He might be my favorite character in the whole thing. I really enjoy his voice over here. And again, he's crushing it in part two. What about Haley Steinfeld as Gwen? Are you a Gwen Stacy guy or a Mary Jane Watson guy?
Um, I mean, as the one that Peter ends up with, I am always team MJ. MJ was the one he was supposed to be
Hmm.
with. It was always supposed to be that way. I mean, I mean, rest in peace to John Romita Sr. We just found out that he passed away, but just like, I don't know if people remember how big of a deal it was when she first debuted, and like she was like this character that kept being referenced over and over again, but we had never actually seen her. Uh,
Hmm.
and then we finally see her, and she's like a knockout. um, but yeah, I'm always team MJ. Um, but Gwen, the character in Spider Gwen, is a totally different character because kind of thing with Gwen Stacy in the original books is Gwen is kind of Obi-Wan, where we don't know that much about Gwen. Um, her definitive storyline is dying, and so
Hmm.
you don't really get an idea of who she was and why Peter loved her so much. But you have an idea who this Gwen is because we follow her through her own books and her own, adventures. And I feel like they did such a great job in the second movie of not just putting Gwen back in the fold, but really giving her a lot of screen time and really like showcasing why she's such a great character.
And the voice acting here, I think, is really good too. And they've made a point of like very subtle things, like her hair's not perfect, her nose isn't perfect, she's got like a slight gap in her teeth. They wanted to put over the fact that this is someone you could bump into on the street. This wasn't a cover model. This isn't a Mary Jane Watson. This is, a girl that could be your neighbor, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. What do you think about her voice acting for this character?
I think she's great. I think she does a great job of making Gwen feel like kind of a every character, kind of like Peter's supposed to be. And I mean, that is one of those
Mm,
things that I understood from watching like Spectacular Spider-Man and some other adaptations of Gwen is that the thing that uh brought him and Gwen together is that they're so much alike. They're, in some ways Mary Jane always seems like she's out of his league, but Gwen
Yeah.
is the girl that he could always get, and he's the girl that I think he believes he would have settled down with if he was never Spider-Man. She was the kind of girl that, you know, he could end up with realistically and start a family with.
Yeah, and I mean, like we've been talking about Tobey Maguire here, right? But like they did a lot with Kirsten Dunst in that movie to lead you to believe that she's a down home girl, also that she's very sweet and pretty simple and everything. And look, she's great in those movies too. I mean, we covered that Spider Man here on the 6M, and when she looks at him at the end and says, "Go get him, Tiger," dude, that gave me cold chills. It still does. She's fantastic. But that's not, again, and you know what? Not for nothing. We've never really gotten a definitive comic book correct MJ, have we? In terms of attitude and spunk and fire. We've never really got that, have we?
No, not really.
Um, yeah, I liked Haley here as Gwen, and she's of course exceptional. What do you think about the first movie kicks off with basically with it's Miles's story. It's about him, and the second film is about Gwen. So you're getting things from her perspective. You're getting her full origin story, and the things that, of course, this notion. By the way, spoilers, kids. If we haven't said that, spoilers in this episode. But this
Um,
idea that Peter's dead because of her here.
um, yeah, I think that those are two things that make her and Miles similar. Is that she kind of got thrusted into this, and she is a character alongside all these other Spider-Man that is not Peter Parker. And it's not just that they're not Peter; they also kind of carry around the guilt of being there when Peter died.
Mm.
Um, so it's kind of this thing that bonds the two of them. But I'm very glad that they fleshed out her character the second time around. I didn't expect that. This still is very much a Miles story, but I do think they
Yeah.
spent a lot of time from the beginning of the movie throughout building this story arc. So by the end of the movie, when we get the cliffhanger, it's such a great moment for Gwen.
Man, that music's building to a crescendo, and all the heroes are assembling on screen. We get, Spider Ham's back, Film Noir, Spider Man's back, and I'm like, wait a minute, they don't have enough time. Oh my god, is this going to be a two-parter? And sure enough, it was to be continued. Did you see that? Did you know that was going to happen? By the way.
I didn't know that we are getting it to be continued, but I did know that the initial concept was to make it two movies.
There you go. So let's see. Let's talk about Aaron Davis, who is Miles's uncle, also known as the Prowler. Mahershala, and I always get his name wrong, so no disrespect.
Is it Mahershala? I think
Mahershala
that's right.
Ali,
I think
Mahershala. You know how many
I think
times
that's
I've butchered that name? I think you're right, Mahershala.
think that's how
Yeah,
you pronounce it.
dude, I could, that old saying about you could, listen to someone read the phone book. This guy not only is a great actor, he's got a voice for this 100%, and it's so powerful. And during the animation process of the first film, they're getting these performances. They get all these voice in the death scene, and they went back and reanimated because it was more powerful than they could have imagined, and they didn't expect him. They didn't expect it to be that intense, so they actually went back and reanimated that entire scene. Dude, he is great no matter what he does. Why is he perfect as Miles's uncle? You think? What is it about his voice that works here?
I think he's great in everything I've seen him in. He was fantastic in Luke Cage.
Mm.
Um,
Oh yeah.
when you I don't know if you've ever seen Moonlight, but when you watch Moonlight, it's like, oh yeah, this guy makes perfect sense as Aaron because his character arc in that movie is kind of similar.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, no, he makes perfect sense. This was perfect casting for Aaron. Um, yeah, he's great in the quieter moments. He get it. You know, you can see right away why Miles is so connected to him and why he's so like fascinated with him, because his dad is like the rule maker and the strict one, and he's looking around like, no, Aaron's cool and he lets me do what I want. Um, and then like just seeing that stark contrast of him in the Prowler costume and him realizing like, oh my God, who is this guy? I don't know you at all. Um, it's really like the those jump scares with Prowler in the first movie, and the
So
music
good.
hits they do with them are just so great, so great.
That music, oh, that music's so ominous. It's awesome.
Yeah, so when we see Aaron in this movie, I was very excited to see him in the bits towards the end. Um, I really like the stuff they did in the other universe with him. Um, Great actor, just really perfect cast. Can't say much more than this.
And we've said this before here on the show, Phil, but like you can have the best actors in the world. Doesn't mean they can do voice acting because it's a different thing. But man, he absolutely kills it. Like he's so good.
Yeah, he just brings man, he brings this dedication to the craft with everything I've seen him do.
Mm.
Because I mean, I just talked about Moonlight. He's not in Moonlight that long, but he was great in it. If I remember correctly, I think he won or he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for that.
Mm. Let's see. Ba, 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 ba. Oh man, there's a whole other page for that. Let's see. He won Best Supporting Actor for that film.
Well deserved. He's great in it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great, and not for nothing, kids. He's Blade. Don't know when we're getting it, but he's Blade. God, I can't wait for that film. It's gonna be such a good movie. I'm calling it. It's gonna be great. I hope so. Anyway, so
Yeah.
uh, yeah. What about his brother? Well, not his brother, but the man who is voice acting his brother, Jefferson Davis. Brian Tyree Henry is, dude. This is one of the best. He sounds like your dad, doesn't he? Doesn't he just sound like your dad? Like he wants what's best for you. He's always kind of on you, right? He sounds like the typical all American dad here, man. He's great in this role.
Yeah. The Paper Boy from Atlanta, who watched a TV show, which Donald Glover's TV show, and a bunch of other stuff he's been in, part of Eternals as well.
Hmm.
Um, Good actor, man. I think he does a great job of doing the serious stuff and being the doting dad. The stuff from the first movie of, give your dad a hug. Um,
Yeah.
all that stuff is funny. And I think him and Miles have such great chemistry throughout the movie. Both voice actors did such a great job. Um, Miles doing his Spider-Man voice every time he's around him to try and disguise his voice is hilarious every time.
Yeah. I look forward to working with you. That's so good. So good. Dude, he was great in Bullet Train, by the way. Can we say that? He was exceptional in that movie.
Yeah, great actor.
From Fayetteville, North Carolina, by the way. There you
I didn't know that. It's from J.
go.
Cole's
I didn't know
hometown.
that either. Yeah. Also from the first movie, we have Lily Tomlin, the iconic Lily Tomlin as May Parker. Does a bang up job. Really, really good. Miles's mother, portrayed by Luna Lauren Velez, who is back as Rhea Morales. And of course, Mary Jane is Zoe Kravitz, daughter of legendary Lenny. Doesn't get a whole lot to do. And we know the third movie is going to be coming eventually. Do you see MJ's character becoming a little bit more prominent in part three, perhaps, for whatever reason?
I don't know. Um, she doesn't get a lot to do. She is kind of like this one that got away for Peter B throughout the entire movie. Um, doesn't get a lot to say, but boy, the character design they did for her is incredible. She looks
Hmm.
great every time she's on
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, she does. 100%. And I don't want to glaze over the other actors we just mentioned. Luna Lauren Velez as Rio is fantastic. She's so good. I think that she fits. She sounds like the doting mother. And again, I didn't want to leave her out and just kind of gloss over her. I mean, these actors have such chemistry together. And from what I could tell, they weren't necessarily like in the same studio at the same time doing these voices, but it doesn't really, you can't really tell. It sounds like they're all, again, the chemistry's there. At least it sounds as though it is,
Yeah.
but she's really good in that role also.
Yeah. She gets a lot more to do in the second movie, and I think that the
Yeah.
stuff they do with her in the second movie is a lot better. We get a lot more of an idea of what her relationship with Miles is, because we get more of Miles's relationship with his dad in the first movie.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Good call. Yeah. Yeah. We flip it this time. Flip script this time. I like that. John Mulaney as Peter Porker, also known as Spider Ham, is effing amazing. John Mulaney has one of those voices that you can't quite put a name on it, like 1930s reporter, carnival barker. I mean, something along those lines. The last comedy special I saw, he's officially cleaned up his act again, which is great because I know he struggled for a
Again,
long time. Again, it's like the second time I think. Good for him, man. But dude, he's funny. He is freaking hilarious as Peter Porker / Spider Ham. I mean, the absolute best voice. I don't know who else could have done this. I mean, it's just effing great. Tom Clark 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you. Kimiko Glenn as Penny Parker. These characters are back in the very end of part 2. And then, of course, we get to see Nicolas Cage's Spider-Man Noir, but we don't get to hear him. And those characters all together in that first movie, dude, my God. Nicolas Cage deserves an Oscar for that. I'm telling you. It's so good. There was even a bit where, they were talking about, well, we knew that Cage was coming in and we didn't know what to expect. And we were kind of all struck. And then he starts working. And then at one point he stops and looks at them and says, "Do you want me to just go full on Cage or what?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." In his word, that's the way he described himself. And they're like, "Of course, by all means, go for it." So he did. And they're like, "This is the best day ever." Because that's exactly what we got was full on Cage, man. So good. I love that guy.
Nicolas Cage is a legend, man.
He is.
I think about him in Kick-Ass quite a bit. Because he just leads so heavily into all the silliness of the character, and he doesn't care. He's just like, no, you could tell he's just having the time of his life playing some of these characters. You hear stories like that all the time, like with Renfield. I haven't seen Renfield, but like the way people talk about him on set and how he just like dove completely into this character. Once he came on set, he was Dracula. That's Nicolas Cage, man.
Yeah, that's him.
And I mean, I know he's been the butt of jokes because he's been in bad movies. He's done some questionable choices creatively as well. But man, great actor. I mean, when I think of stuff like him and Leaving Las Vegas, it's a prickly pear. It's a prickly pear. He's falling to his table. It's just no, he's amazing, man.
What's great about him, and we've said this on the show, I think during the Face Off episode, the watch along, in the archives, kids. One of the great things about him was that, supposedly they've come after him for years to be on a streamer. And he keeps telling them no. And his comeback is always, I'm a Hollywood movie actor. That's what I am. And like, I don't think he's ever really thrown shade at anything that's on a streaming service or anyone that does that work. But he's like, that I don't do that. I do this. And I'm like, you know what? I have respect for that. You're right. He's made some questionable choices which has become the punchline. And you know what, dude? I think he's okay with that. I think he's like, you know what? I don't care. I don't really care what people think, and he just has fun with whatever he does. So I respect
Yeah, I think he
that.
knows who he is. I think he knows his place in Hollywood. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
I definitely respect him going, I'm a movie star. And that's not a knock at people that do TV or do like the streaming shows, but I'm a movie star. There's a difference between what we do and what they do.
Mm. I actually really, I very much agree with that. And I can't tell you who the first one was because I don't know. Because there's been crossovers for years, even before the modern era. But for some reason, Gary Sinise just jumped into my head as being one of the first that I can recall in this moment. That when he was announced for CSI New York, that I was like, "Wow, Gary Sinise is doing this." Because in my mind, it was like, "Dude, Gary Sinise is a film actor."
Yeah.
So again, not the first by any means, but at that time, for me anyway, that sort of signaled something. And then since then, we've seen all sorts of A-list celebrities and A-list actors and actresses come to streamers and come to TV. We can't not mention the great Catherine Hahn as Dr. Olivia Liv Octavius and Liv Schreiber as Wilson Fisk / the Kingpin in that first movie. Both their performances were fantastic. Catherine Hahn is great in everything she does. And Schreiber's unexpected delivery of Kingpin, this guy felt like a true New Yorker, a New York tough guy, dude, in every sense of the word. Those two together in that first movie were great.
Yeah. Kingpin was such a great villain in the first movie. His character design is absolutely ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense how this guy is able to move or
Yeah.
exist in the real world, but incredible stuff.
How does he carry his own weight without his knees giving way? Yeah. For sure. For sure. I'm with you, though. It absolutely works for that movie. 100%. Let's see. So, part two, again, we've got quite a few carryovers here. Um, the primary villain of part two, and we mentioned this in the opening, Phil, with the bagel spot, which I love. There's a callback to one of the goofiest moments in that first movie was the sound effect.
Bagel.
Oh, bagel. Yes. Dude, Jason Schwartzman as Dr. Jonathan On, otherwise known as the Spot. I mean, this is one of the hokiest looking villains. If you know him from the books, you know what I mean. And also from the movie here, of course. How cool is it that they go a route that's not maybe entirely expected and they still found a way to make it work here?
I don't know if this is true, but I heard a reference that Avi Arad was the guy that approached them about using the spot for the movie, which is wild to me because my first time coming across the spot was from the '90s television show, which Avi Arad was also a part of. Um, and so that is a cool. That's such a cool reference for people that watch the '90s animated series and like seeing the spot be like the main villain is kind of crazy when you think about it because the spot's like I, I don't even want to say a B list. He's like a D list villain. um, and so no, I think he's great at this. He's a screw up just like we've seen other screw ups in this franchise, and he's kind of like, nah, I'm gonna make you pay for everything. And then when you see him like being taken seriously, it's like, oh, all right. And I think the art style they use for him is really cool. You can see um, as a director that's done art, that's done animation, and knows what they're doing there. But his design, you can see like all of the guidelines under him. Like they don't erase the
Mm,
guidelines out; it's still a part of it. His character design, almost like it's breaking the fourth wall, and the way he moves
mm.
and everything. The way the spots kind of like move around on his skin and regenerate in different places like ink blots is really cool. Um, and then like what he's like transforming into because he keeps like trying to get stronger. That the one scene with him in the middle of the multiverse where he starts turning black is really really cool.
Yeah, dude, and you're right about Avi Arad suggested this. Lord Miller first said no, but the more they heard about his powers, the more they relented. And this could have ended horribly because, as legend has it, it was Arad's decision that we got Venom in the ill-fated Spider-Man 3. It was just going to be the Sandman. I mean, dude, listen, not for nothing. I can't sit here and blame Arad 100%. But dude, let's be fair. Had that decision not been made, Spider-Man 3 could have been a classic and a hit. And we could have been talking about it in the same breath as part 2. I don't know.
Yeah. The only thing is, it was very clear that Sam Raimi did not want to do a Venom movie. See,
Yeah.
the difference here is those guys relented and they were like, hey, this is a great idea. And they actually worked with it. Sam Raimi clearly wanted nothing to do with Venom.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't blame him because he did spend 2 movies building up 2 other villains to be the main bads throughout 3 and possibly 4. And I think putting Venom in undermined the story that he was already telling.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very clear that Harry coming out of the second movie was supposed to be the main villain for the third movie. Like that was clearly the direction they were going into. They were doing all this stuff with Kirk Connors that never paid off. So I can understand his frustrations.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but like you said, they relented and it works here, and I think it was fine. Honestly, I didn't lose any sleep over it at all, and it works here. I think it works, and it's hilarious. He's hilarious, and Jason does a great job. Let's see. We've also got a couple new spider people here, a few new spider people. We've got Issa Rae as Jessica Drew, or also known as Jess. When she shows up on this motorcycle, she's pregnant, which is effing crazy. But she's a member of the Spider Society. Very cool, though. She does not maintain a secret identity, unlike all the other Spider-Man / Spider Women that there are. We've also got Karan Sony as Pavatar Prabkar, which again I could be mispronouncing that and butchering it. Which is the Spider-Man India character. I really, really love this guy. Mumbai Hatton instead of Mumbai and Manhattan, which is effing great.
Or his whole spiel about chai tea, and he's like, "There's no such thing as chai tea. It's just chai."
Chai is tea. Yeah, it's great. That's really good. And then, of course, Daniel Kaluuya is Hobie Brown. And this guy is, again, somebody that's just, he's a must-see guy. Everything he's in is great. Such a great actor. It's so cool they got him in here as Hobie Brown, Spider Punk, a black British punk rock version of Spider-Man from an alternate universe, is ruled by a totalitarian regime, and he uses a guitar as his main weapon.
Yeah. I don't know if people have made the connection, by the way, that Hobie in most of the universes is a prowler. It's not Spider-Man.
Well, there you
go. And so, when we do get his kind of face turn, so to speak, later in the movie, makes sense because, Miles gets along with prowlers.
Yeah. Oh man. This movie is so good, dude. Like the sequel. Again, I don't know if I'm going to sit here and say that for me the sequel is better than the first one. I think it's extremely wildly entertaining. It's great for its own reasons. I mean, the first one, of course, is an origin story, for lack of a better term, and is great in that regard. So yeah, I've seen some not so great reviews that are saying whatever they're saying, but it's whatever. I don't really care.
Really, I've seen nothing but positive response to this movie.
Oh well, I think Rotten Tomatoes at the moment is at 73%, and like the other score is like 97%. So no, it's not too far off. But dude, some people just want to complain about stuff, man. That's the world we live in. Unfortunately. But no, I mean, it's whatever I've seen has been mild. It's not been anything insane or intense. We have to mention one of the biggest new characters in this movie, Spider-Man 2099 himself, which I was there when these books came out in real time. And let me tell you what a shot in the arm 2099 was, because this was years before the Ultimates. This was years before Miles or anyone else. This is, of course, Miguel O'Hara, portrayed by Oscar Isaac. Again, another great actor, and described as a ninja vampire, which is all kinds of fun. All kinds of
So
fun.
Blade.
Yes. Yes. Dude, what do you think about him in this movie, man? Because like his voice to me is so recognizable, but yet it works so well here. I mean, you have a hard time calling him the villain, because when you get his backstory, you kind of know where he's coming from, but you also can't really say he's the hero either. I think his voice is a great mix of both here.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of getting a bunch of guys that have done like some serious acting, some great, movie making. Like when I think Daniel Kaluuya and I think him doing like Fred Hampton and doing all these other like amazing roles, and him coming in and doing this like outlandish UK rocker character is really cool. And then you think of Oscar Isaac, who's done a bunch of really good stuff. He's done Moon Knight. He's done. Uh, we don't have to talk about the X-Men movie that he did. He's done other really cool stuff, and he comes in here and he just adds so much weight to this character. He adds so much dignity to him, um, and I really enjoyed him. Yeah, he is kind of like a secondary bad in this movie. I guess we'll call him a protagonist, 'cause he's not really a villain, um, but his motives make sense when we get the flashback of why he feels this way and why he wants to protect the canon events. And I mean, even the idea of canon events is just genius, because
Yeah.
it's like, no, it's very much like fanboys like, no, you got to protect, you got to protect these things that make sense, these things that make him Spider-Man. If you're going to do an adaptation, you got to do these things, you got to do this
Right.
person has to die. And so all of this stuff is so brilliant. But from the very beginning of this franchise, Miles's whole point has been, no, I'm Spider-Man and I do things my own way. And I'm my own character. I'm not Peter Parker.
Mm,
And I mean, you get that great monologue from the first movie of anybody can wear the mask. You can be Spider-Man. I can be
mm.
Spider-Man. And so you get the follow up to this that in this movie of Miguel having this like having this like breakdown of like, no, you're an anomaly. All of this doesn't make sense. It's supposed to happen this way. And Miles is no, he's exactly that. He's an anomaly. He's not. He's an outlier, and so he and his whole point of view is like, no, why can't I just do things my way? Why can't I just do things this way?
That was going to be my next point to you, was this idea of, again, like you said, he's an anomaly. He's not supposed to be here. Like he wasn't supposed to happen. And Miguel tells him in the film that the spider that bit you came from another dimension. It wasn't supposed to bite you. And because of you, the Peter Parker of your universe is dead, because there wasn't going to be two Spider-Man in his universe. This explains everything, Phil, 100%.
Yes.
And it makes so much sense. It's actually ridiculous how much sense this makes. And nothing is shoehorned. Nothing's retrofitted. Nothing is made
Yes.
to where you go, wait a minute, what? What do you mean freaking, Qui-Gon Jinn trained him? That's not what Yoda said. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. Like it absolutely fits, dude. And I didn't have a hard time at all. But dude, because he's an anomaly, doesn't that mean that he can act outside of the parameters of canon? And technically speaking, it shouldn't lead to like disaster. I mean, I say that, but in Mumbai, look what happened when he saved the cop, right? Look what happened. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I think that's the thing here. We get all of these other characters that have been Spider-Man longer than him, and they're jaded. They've gone through all of the stuff that you know made them who they are, but it's made them overly cautious. And uh Miles is still new. He doesn't have as much skin in the game. So he's like, well, why can't I just save this person? Why can't I just do what's right? And it's
Mm,
that same thing that we get from the first movie of them having a conversation with him. Like, I don't care what you do, you cannot save everyone. And there's so many things that hit me hard. Like him telling him he was a mistake, it just really hit me hard because
mm,
I don't know, man. Like just being a kid and just like trying to find your place in the world and just being told you're a mistake is just so crushing. And I mean, especially as a black kid, like you're not supposed to be here. Like you're it's very crushing because I think a lot of black people struggle with this idea or imposter syndrome of no matter how good I am at something, no matter, how smart I am, I don't know if I belong here in a conversation with other people. Like, and you know what I mean by that. I don't know if I belong here. And
mm.
so, to have Miles have that challenge and to have somebody just be like, "No, you don't belong here." And he doesn't even fold under it. He doesn't even react to it. He's just like, "Nope, I'm still going to do what I think is right." It's just a really good story.
Mm. Yeah, that's very gutting. That's very gutting to be told. For him to be told, you're not supposed to happen. This isn't. Yeah, you're a mistake. I mean, my God, what a thing to say to a character. But you're
Yeah,
right. It's that lack of experience that's got him to be. Is careless the right word, or he's just not thinking ahead of time?
I would say carefree. I don't want to call him reckless
Carefree.
because I think that he makes good decisions. He has good instincts, but he doesn't he hasn't made a mistake like they've made that cost him everything. He hasn't had a Gwen yet. He hasn't had a Captain Stacy yet. He doesn't carry around the grief and the guilt as much as some of the other guys. I mean, you could say that he carries the grief and the guilt from the Peter of his universe dying, but it's
Mm,
not the same. And I mean, again, we saw what that Peter meant to him and how he was so willing to welcome him in and mentor him, and to get that thrown in his face, like you're the reason he's not here. Yeesh, that's very hurtful thing to say to him.
yeah.
Just because you know what that Peter meant to him, and it's just really good story stuff. And again, I don't think that Miguel means it that way. I don't think that he's wrong, but again, he went through something very traumatic. Like losing your whole family is just really traumatic. And so I get it, but I think the thing is that he's not seeing because he's not a place to see it is because again he's going through all this other stuff. Is that no? When you look at it, like he isn't a mistake because if that spider did not bite him, the spider from whatever universe bit Miles instead, then that means there's a Peter somewhere that didn't have to go through all of the stuff that they did. He didn't have to suffer as much as they
Mm.
did, and that's not a mistake because he got his own life. He didn't have to take on a responsibility. He didn't have to take on all of the things that could be considered a burden.
That's a great call because, as we saw, there was a Miles from the universe that he wasn't. He didn't realize where he was, and there's a Miles that did not get bitten by a spider, obviously.
Yeah,
But there is a Peter from that. Okay.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, when you
So
really
he's
think
in that
about it,
universe, Phil, right?
who the Peter that wasn't bitten, or
Yeah. So in the end of part two, when he's into the universe that he thinks is home, he's in the universe that the spider came from. Wouldn't that make sense? Or
oh, yeah, I think
well,
so.
no,
I
maybe
think that's
not.
what I think that's what it is. But even regardless, I think like even if you don't look at it like that spider was meant to bite Peter, um,
Hmm.
you can look at it the reverse way and say, all right, if that spider never bites you and you never beat Peter Parker, this is where you end up. This is where Miles ends up. You can't say that his
Hmm.
life is a mistake because he's now doing what's right. And that Miles is in his universe that didn't die. I mean that didn't get bitten. He's not in a better place. Um,
Yeah.
he's not better off for not being Spider-Man. He's worse off in a lot of ways. Um, so yeah, I don't know because I've always taken the story of Spider-Man to be that without the mask, without any of the powers, without any of that stuff, Peter is still Peter Parker. He's
Yeah.
still he's still an intrinsically good guy. Um, and I think when you boil his trauma and all of his canon events down to what made him, I think it does a disservice to who he is as a character. The thing that really makes him as a character is that he went through all of that stuff and he didn't let it change him.
Yeah, and we've said this numerous times as well, but I think it bears repeating. The biggest difference between Marvel and its distinguished competition, historically, not with every character, but historically has always been that with DC, the story is about the mask. And in Marvel, the story is about the guy wearing the mask. It's never it's never the same. Peter Parker's life didn't become better because he got powers. It became exponentially worse. Nothing got fixed. Things got broken. People
Yeah.
died. Life got harder. He didn't get rich. He didn't get famous. He got infamous, wanted by the cops, vilified by the press, his family put in danger, his own life on the line. Nothing got better. And by some virtue of who he is as a person, he managed to remain a good guy, like you said, through the whole thing. And Miles is, speaking of Miles, by the way, what do you think about his character arc? Do you think part 2 is exactly where he needs to be? Because to me, it felt pitch perfect with the development of this character here.
I think it makes sense with where he is in his life. He's at a point where stop me if you heard this, if you've seen any coming of age movie. He's at a pivotal part in his life where his choices matter, and I think that is a big theme throughout the movie is that his choices matter, like where you are, who you're with, um, you know, being on time, being reliable. Your choices matter, and I think he's at a point in his life where he's at a crossword. He needs to understand that his choices matter, and we get the perfect idea of where your bad choices can lead you in the cliffhanger of the movie.
Ah, yeah, good call. Yeah. That's a really, because man, had he just stayed, had he not jumped, yeah, wow. Yeah. Because Spider-Man as a man is who he is because of his experiences.
Yeah, and I think Miles is different. I think Miles is younger, of course, and I think Miles is his background is different. Um, it's a little bit different. I think it's weird to think about like where Peter would be if he had both of his parents, and Miles has both of his parents, so he learns lessons a different way.
Are we losing his dad in part 3? Is it inevitable?
I don't think we're going to. I think he is eventually going to save his dad, and I think the point is going to be that he creates his own canon events.
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot better than losing his dad because I don't want that to happen. Even though these people aren't real.
I hate this idea that it's like, well, he just has to lose his dad. It's something that has to happen. And again, it's kind of a breaking the fourth wall thing because if you watch Spectacular Spider-Man, which I love Spectacular Spider-Man, I'm of the belief that it is the best Spider-Man cartoon. I know people will say the animated series, but I think Spectacular Spider-Man is the best. But the producers of it were saying for a long time that people are like, all right, well, this is leading to Gwen dying, right? Because Gwen is the main character throughout that show. And we get such a great idea through that show of who Gwen is and why Peter falls for her. And the whole time we're watching this thing, like, all right, well, Gwen has to die, right? Because it happens in the comic. And they came out at one point after the show got canceled and they were like, no, we never planned to kill Gwen. Gwen was always going to stay a part of the show. But fans have just made up this idea that because it happened in the comic and because it's this thing that molds him, it has to happen. And that's why I think the idea of canon events in this movie is so brilliant because it's just such it's a thing that we as comic fans and people that have seen so many of these adaptations can understand.
Yeah, because it's the way it was originally written. That's where
Yeah, and
Yeah,
canon is such a fanboy term. Like, of course, if
it
you read
is.
comic books your entire life, you know what canon means. You know if something's not non-canon, you know what that means.
And we're using that in pro wrestling too,
Yeah, it's crazy that canon
for
is
sure.
like a known word now in pop culture because that was something that was like thrown around on message boards and in like certain circles. Like you say non-canon to certain people, they don't know what the hell that means.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What about as random here, but what about the Ben Raleigh Scarlet Spider? Wasn't that one of the coolest things you'd ever seen in
So
part two?
he's so great. He's so
My
90s.
backstory.
He's so great. He has like the voice you would expect of one of those 90s characters. He has the design. He moves
Yeah.
the same way. It's perfect.
Oh, so good. What wasn't he talking about the way he was drawn at one point or the way his
Yes, I don't
it
remember
was
the
some kind
exact
of
lines. Yes.
oh, it's like insider baseball, probably about too many pockets or his vest or something. Yeah, it was. Yeah, my God.
Yeah, it was
Um,
it was the way he's drawn muscular as well. It's really funny, man.
yeah,
I'm glad we got a Ben Riley here. Man, we got so many cameos. We got so many references to other Spider-Man. I talked about
yeah.
Spectacular Spider-Man. We
Jeez.
got some great Spectacular Spider-Man references in this movie. Like if you were one of those people that were upset that the show got canceled, man, we got some great stuff in this movie.
Mhm. God, there's too much here to really name.
Yeah,
There's so much stuff going on in this second movie.
I mean, in reference to what I said with the Gwen thing, when they're showing the canon events, I don't know if you noticed, but they're showing all of the Gwens that dies and all their Spider-Mans holding their Gwen and doing like the iconic panel from the movie from the book. If you notice, the Spectacular Spider-Man is not holding a Gwen.
Interesting.
He's not holding a Gwen because his Gwen never died.
Ah, well done. Well done. Um, well, let's try to dig into some of these here. Some of the Easter eggs that are in part two. Great catch, by the way. The Comics Code Authority logo. Um, it's basically just a fun nod to the classic comics that inspired Into the Spider Verse. Its many predecessors, and I always thought it was connected to something else, but it's really not. For whatever reason, they just included it on both. So let's see. We did not mention the return of J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson here.
Yeah, we did get a J Jonah reference here.
Very cool. Very cool. I like that a lot. Love that guy. So good. So let's see. Peter Parker, also known as the Lizard in Gwen's universe.
Yes.
So, yeah, Earth 65. He was relentlessly bullied, with one of his tormentors being someone named Ned. And we know that has to be Ned Leeds, aka the Hobgoblin, Peter Parker's best friend in the MCU. Fed up with the bullying, Peter creates a serum to turn himself into the universe's version of the Lizard, attacking his school's dance. Gwen fights the scaly beast, not realizing it's actually her best friend, and he's killed as a result. Yeah, that's fun. Let's see. Yuri Watanabe appears here. She was the Wraith. So yeah, there's the Italian Renaissance vulture. Dude, what about that Italian Renaissance vulture? How effing crazy was that, man? Like a hand drawing in this movie.
Yeah, he was great in the scenes that he was in. I like that um I like that they don't tell you right away which universe he came from.
Mm-hmm.
Um I'm assuming he came from those Da Vinci Marvel books that they had out for a while. That's
Mm.
what I guessed right away. But I like that they don't even tell you where he's from. I like that he just shows up and he is all of his stuff of being out of his universe and like him being confused by it is great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was excellent. Really, really good stuff. Ziggy Marley's got a cameo in this movie too. Jamaican shop owner. Yuri Watanabe's here, as we mentioned before, from Earth 65. She's there. Um, yeah, let's see. Catherine Hahn appearing briefly in flashbacks returns, of course. We also got some live action Spider-Man thrown in here. Garfield and Maguire both, which
Yeah.
were very cool, actually.
Yeah. Really cool to see them pop up. Really cool to see them reference Tom. We don't see Tom, but we got the reference to him. We got the reference to what happened in No Way Home.
Yes,
I
that's
thought that
great.
was cool. Yeah, we got a few nods to Tom's universe.
Let's see, Spider-Man 2099. Let's see, one of the names that what is it that Gwen guesses that he might be is Nacho Libre, which is cool. It's fun stuff. Yeah, yeah, like you said, this movie does reference No Way Home, which was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Genki, who is Miles's roommate, he's now in on it. Phil, he's in on the team here. Well, not the team, but he knows Miles' secret. He's still his roommate here at this school. He tells Miles, "I'm not your guy in the chair," which is a nice little nod to the MCU with Ned.
Yeah, so there's a sect of Miles fans that hate Ned Leeds in the MCU because he's basically Genki. Like, there's no getting around it. He's Genki, um,
Mhm.
and so I've seen a lot of them go, well, MCU Peter has taken a lot from the original Miles books, and they've kind of used that without any intention of making Miles a live action movie, which is absolutely false. It's just completely false. Um, but there
Mm.
are people that are, of course, impatient. So they're like, "Are we going to talk about how MCU Spider-Man takes a lot from Miles?" And it's like, yeah, but Miles does not exist without Peter Parker in any way.
Mm.
Does not exist. Um, like, even when you look at Into the Spider Verse, again, the Spider Verse is a 616 Spider-Man comic book. It is not an Ultimate comic.
Yeah, yeah, good call.
But yeah, no. So I do think it was good that we got a reference to Ned in MCU and Genki basically being like, "Yeah, I'm not that guy." Even though he's totally like a man in a chair type character in the Miles books, he does it a little bit in the Spider-Man game as well. And so it would make sense for him to be that. But I love that he just like strictly denies it here. Really good.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Be interesting to see if anything ever happens to that character in the third film. We'll see. He may just become an ancillary or remain an ancillary character in the background, which that'd be fine too. That classic line from the first movie with John Mulaney says, "Do animals talk in this universe? Because I don't want to freak him out." So good. We also had to mention, let's see, something else we got in this second film, Peggy Lou as Mrs. Chen from the Venom movies. What'd you think about that? I guess Sony just couldn't resist the urge to put her in here, could they?
I thought it was a good reference. I thought that was that's a good payoff for that people that like those Venom movies.
Mhm.
I thought the first one was fine. I haven't watched the second one.
Yeah, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't care for the first one. I just didn't care for it. In my opinion, Tom Hardy is much better than these movies.
Yeah.
Like, to me, he's so much better. And he may not be looking at it this way. I don't know. Maybe no one else is. But for me, from where I'm sitting, it feels like he's lowering himself for these movies. Whereas, if you're Chris Evans, how could you ever say that you lowered yourself to become Captain America? Like,
Yeah.
how, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? If you're Tom Holland, how do you say that? But for Tom Hardy, yeah, dude, he's much better than this character, honestly, at least the way it's written.
I agree, but I also think that he's kind of doing what we said earlier with Nick Cage, where he is fully embracing the kookiness of the character, and he's just trying to do something fun, and I get that.
Hmm.
I say that the first Venom movie was fine, but I just am not interested in a Venom movie without Spider Man. I'm just not. Um, and I
Mm.
think that's always going to be the hurdle with somebody trying to do their villain universe stuff. I don't care how you try and make Morbius interesting or you try to make a Craven movie. I don't want to see those characters without Spider Man. Sorry, I just don't.
Yeah, 100%. 100%
And so,
agree. Yeah, man, Sony's moving forward with those spinoffs, dude. They're totally doing them.
gotta try and make some money, buddy. Gotta get that cash cow
I
going.
guess.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's fine because we also got the reference to Venom in No Way Home, and that's how the symbiote is now in the MCU. Um, so it's fine. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to not to jump too excited about MCU stuff. I'm definitely looking forward to possibly seeing symbiote stuff with Tom Holland Spider
Hmm. Interesting to see what happens. We do have to mention that the Ben Reilly Spider Man was actually Andy Samberg.
Did not know that. Did not know that.
I
That's
love
hilarious.
that guy. I love it. I'm such a Brooklyn Nine-Nine guy, man. Love that freaking show, dude. So, yeah, Donald Glover's appearance. We talked about that as the Prowler. Very cool. Um, why have we not seen him fully realized in the MCU? I wonder. It's just not the right time, or they chose not to go that route. Wonder why they didn't go that route with him.
I think they were just trying to do the reference to let you know that Aaron exists in that universe and that Miles
Mm,
exists in the universe. But I always figured that they
mm,
probably go back to him when they did the Miles movie, and I feel like this movie confirmed it. Like him being here
mm.
confirms that they're probably going to go that route.
Yeah, I thought it was cool that the PlayStation Spider Man is in this movie. Also, you see his suit in the first film too.
Yeah, PlayStation. I mean, I think both PlayStation Spider Mans, like the original Sony
Yeah,
PlayStation Spider Man and the newer Insomnia Spider Man, is here as well.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm
Oh
sure I
man.
missed a lot of Spider-Man cameos and references because there's so many Spider-Man in this movie. We get so many of the different suits. We get bombastic Bagman. I saw in there. We get
Yeah.
tons of references to like one-off suits that he's made. Um, yeah, really cool, man. As a Spider-Man fan, like there were several times in the movie theater I was like, "Oh, that's this, and this is like this like random Easter egg that if you didn't read Spider-Man comics, you have no idea what it is."
So, and this happens quick also. When Miles is running from the spider people, he runs through a training facility filled with cutouts of popular Spider Man villains. One of those villains is Dr. Octopus, who says the line, "Hello, Peter," just like Molina's character did in the hit film. So, Alfred Molina's in here also.
Hmm.
Happens very quick. Very quick. God, like we said, there's a lot going on here. So, yeah. What do you think about the little team that Gwen's put together at the end of this film? That's pretty sweet.
I think it makes perfect sense for her. The people that she picked that are all Miles's friends,
Mm.
and they're all people that have a connection with him. I like that. Slowly throughout the movie, you see other people that are part of Spider Society. Like, no, this kid's all right. Like, why are we doing this? And I think a lot of this stuff. I think it makes perfect sense for the team that she puts together.
I'm curious to see what happens with the third one. It's going to be great. I'm sure it will be. How long do? All right. So as we start to wrap this up here, what do we know how far this is going? Do we know anything past the third film? Do we think this is going to continue? If you had to wager a guess, do you think we're looking at 4 or 5 movies? Do you think they'll tell their story and be done in 3? What do you think?
I think the references to MCU stuff here and the fact that it feels like we're very much getting live action Miles, I feel like the third movie is going to wrap up this trilogy. I feel like we're probably not going to get another one after this. We may get a spinoff or something, but I don't think we're going to get another uh, Miles Spider Verse movie. I think from then on, we're probably full on into production for the live action movie.
So, with that film, do you touch any of this? Do you leave this alone? Do you do an origin? I mean, what do you do with the live action?
I feel like you do the origin, but you do enough to differentiate it in the MCU, and you can reference that stuff if you want. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Tom Holland cameo by the end of the third movie.
Mm.
So I feel like yeah, you could probably reference the Spider Verse stuff, but I think that if you're gonna do the live action thing, you need to make it its own thing.
I can't wait for people who don't know who Miles is and they don't understand that this was independent of everything, which again, you don't need my permission. Marvel can do whatever they want. So can DC. So can any other publisher. So can the people behind Ghostbusters. I don't care because at the end of the day, they didn't take away the original that I personally have an affinity for.
Yeah, and
But
you got a pretty good movie in Ghostbusters Afterlife that gave you the stuff
oh,
you wanted.
such a good movie. And again, Phil, you could make the argument that movie connected to the original, which is what people wanted to begin with. And even the one with the all female cast, if that movie had tanked and it was connected, hey, look, it just tanked. Story wasn't right. Direction was kind of but at least they had connected the franchises. But
Yeah.
I still believe the fact that it was disconnected, complete reboot, in addition to the story not being great, is what crippled that movie. So I mean, fans have the power here, Phil, more than people realize probably that they can make a movie a hit or doom a movie to fail too.
I hate that fans know that they have that power because they do not use that
Yeah.
power wisely, and they do definitely try to bully studios and do stupid stuff like as we've seen with like the Snyderverse stuff and other stuff. Um,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
and I didn't hate the Ghostbusters movie. I thought it was fine. I think Holtzman is great. As somebody that likes that actress from SNL, I thought she was very funny, and I understood the spirit that they were trying to do with the movie. It just was a hard sell for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the story itself, again, there's issues. I mean, there's admittedly, problems there anyway. But when the connective tissue is just not
Yeah,
there or completely severed or never existed, that's a big deal.
yeah, we get cameos from some of their original cast members that kind of are wonky and don't work. Um, but again, I love Holtzman. Holtzman's the best thing about that movie. The action scene where Holtzman does the has like the two pistols and she's like fighting the ghost by herself in Times Square. Great stuff. Again, justice for Holtzman, man. That Holtzman should appear somewhere else at some point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, and not for nothing, with this new revival of the Ghostbusters brand, you could always incorporate those characters after the fact,
Yeah,
and not even really have to reference that standalone movie. You could just incorporate them in other ways.
yeah. I don't think any of those women did a bad job in their roles. I think the thing
No,
that
no.
wasn't the best about the movies was them trying to do the himbo character with Hemsworth. Wasn't very funny to me. I understood what the point they were making with it. Didn't really do it for me.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to pick on that movie. There's other examples too, and those ladies are doing fine. They're all killing it. Which what was her name? Kristen Wiig. I'm a big fan of hers anyway. So no, they're doing fine.
Yeah,
But the
great
point
cast.
here, yeah, oh for sure. The point here though is that and look, maybe this sounds like a middle aged fanboy complaining. I don't mean it to, but not only are people connected to original source material, there's a reason why original source material lasts 30 plus years because there's something there. It's not just nostalgia. The story was great, the acting was great, it was the right time, it works, and then nostalgia plays in after that. But I think with Spider-Man, you could say the same thing. People are connected to this character for a litany of different reasons. But so if you're going to reinvent, fine. You don't destroy to reinvent. You don't deconstruct to reconstruct. And they didn't do that here. And I think that's what people have a problem with in comics and in other realms. And then, of course, Phil, lots of people have problems because they're racist and misogynistic and homophobic, and they're blatant about it. I'm not speaking for those clowns because they're clowns, right? They're jokers. But like, you know, I can't see the venomous pushback to where people are like picketing and boycotting. I'm like, dude, you still have the original movie. What are you upset about? No one took that away from you. So weird, man. People are effed up. But we're not going to fix that here today. We're not curing cancer. We're just giving you something to listen to, kids. So we hope you dug it. Phil, rank the Spider Verse for me in terms of importance to the Spider-Man characters as a whole. Where do you think these movies rank with the live action Spider-Man movies that we've been given already?
I think I would rank it in the top 5 of Spider-Man movies. I feel like Spider-Man 2 is the high point, and that's just I don't know. For me, I think Spider-Man 2 is still the best Spider-Man movie. I feel like these movies are close behind it. Um, I am a fan of the MCU Spider-Man movies. I was about to say I was about to say H for some reason. Yeah, the HBCU Spider-Man movies. Sounds hilarious. Historically Black College University Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. Um, I think both these films are a hit. They're both just a home run. Both movies are. They're just both utterly rewatchable, utterly fantastic. Everything about these two films completely works. The synergy between these two movies, you feel like no time has passed in between one and two because they flow so seamlessly together. I mean, it's really good stuff. I mean, I'm happy with both of them. As a longtime Marvel fan, as I know you are as well, you'll love when this stuff gets the right treatment. And you know, fans these days feel are jaded by the MCU, but you didn't necessarily grow up with the MCU, and I know I didn't. So like, you know, it's like, well, yeah, we're glad you kids have this stuff, but buddy, there was a time when something was announced, and we're like, oh God, cross your fingers, guys. Let's hope this is okay. now, now it's usually okay, which is great. So yeah, I'm glad these two movies are a hit, man. Um, what do you think the expectation is for live action? I mean, it would have to be monstrous, right? It would have to be, you know, we're putting all cards on the table. If that movie were to fail in any regard, it'd be like, oh, this sucks because I'm already looking forward to it, man. And we could be 5 years away from it at this point.
I mean, I think the anticipation is through the roof at some point. I don't know if you remember when they first got the rights back to Spider-Man and they announced he was going to be a part of Civil War. There was a big outpouring of fans that did not want it to be Peter Parker and they wanted it to be Miles. And that
Hmm.
was well before the Into the Spider-Verse movies happened. So I think at this point there's just a lot of anticipation for live action Miles. I think regardless if the movie is is like a runaway hit or not, I think it's gonna do well because he's at this point an established character with a lot of fans.
Is there an opportunity for Miles to show up at some point in the next 2 years in a Marvel film? Something we're not thinking about where he would just randomly be there for no reason other than just to see him?
Maybe I don't know what Secret Wars is. Maybe like a Miles from another universe could pop up.
Because, you know, if they've already got their eye on someone and he's the right age, then, you know, Marvel loves to plant the seed and just hang on to it for a year before anything happens. So,
Yeah,
oh, I'm
I mean,
anxious.
and I definitely feel like if they don't go exactly the same way as the Ultimate Comics did with the experiments, and there was just another spider that bit Miles, I could absolutely see they're planting the seeds of a spider from another multiverse plopping into this universe and fighting someone else because they've already laid the framework for it in into the Spider Verse. So I could see him having a similar origin.
I mean, there's got to be fallout from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There's got to be fallout there. There's got to be something that, yeah, that can't be it. That can't be it. I mean, there's got to be fallout. People accidentally jumping into the wrong universe or whatnot. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting if he did that spell it and Miles is like somehow one of the only people in the universe that still remembers Dave's Peter Parker.
Yeah. And now Tom Holland's supposedly taking a year off from acting. Tom, buddy, I'm going to need you to come back and be Spider-Man. I don't know what you're doing.
No, he's got time. There's still a writer strike going on.
That's fair.
And production for the Avengers movies got pushed back. He's got time.
Well, we can write it. We'll write it. We can offer to write it. We'll kill it. Not a problem. I'll work much cheaper than the guys they would have paid to do it to begin with.
You trying to be a scab? You going over the picket line? What's wrong with you?
Hey man. If it puts food on my table, you know what I mean? I'll scab all day. I don't care.
But man, support writers, man. Support artists getting what they're paid. They should get paid what they do. I'm not scabbing.
And dude, I remember when the other writer strike happened. Heroes was on, and Heroes season 1 is utterly great. It is, it's a work of art. Season 2, halfway through, the writer strike happened, and it's like, oh god, season 2 fell off a cliff, and then season 3 was a complete train wreck. But I'm with you, man. I'm all for those guys getting paid. We got to remember, kids, none of this stuff's made possible without the men and women behind the scenes writing the words for the actors to speak to begin with. So, yeah, pay them. My God, pay up. Make them happy so they can get back to work. We can get back to watching stuff we love. For sure. Well, there you have it, kids. There's the Spider-Verse. 2 films in the can. We've never knocked out 2 movies in 1 episode before. You're welcome. We managed to do it here, and we're under 2 hours. I'm very impressed with our efforts. Hopefully you are as well. I can't wait for part 3 of this franchise. I'm very much looking forward to it, and of course, live action. But Phil, let's try to sum this up. Give me your last word on the Spider-Verse, at least for now.
Yeah, I think they did a great job with both of these movies. If Into the Spider-Verse is a love letter to Spider-Man, I feel like in some ways, Across the Spider-Verse is like a deconstruction of Spider-Man as a character and more of a formal progression of who Miles should be as a separate character.
Yeah, I think part 1 is going to end up being a classic. If it's not a classic already, I think it's going to be looked at from years from now, from being one of those movies that you have to see, that it's just so worth it. And, did for a new generation what the comics did for the generation that came before it, which is always important and means something and should mean something and shouldn't be ignored. Again, despite what anybody wants to say about whatever characters, their favorites or whatnot, you still can never forget that your favorites are still there. Your favorites still exist. Just go back and watch and read and whatever if you don't like what's currently being done. But here's an idea. Keep an open mind, for goodness sake. But there's nothing to dislike in these 2 movies unless you're just weird or you're all kinds of messed up. So yeah, looking forward to part 3. Can't wait to see what happens. And you can be sure that when it happens, when it hits, we're going to talk about it here on the 6M. But in the meantime, that is the Spider-Verse. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.